Dema Jumden the Jinshewa, Dashoma Yanda, Zobe Sanje Riwa, Dashasun, the Harishewa, Jin, Jema Jiwood, Kalo Jewa, Lana Ameba, Lada Menam Jet, Sanje Jumden, and Benjawa, Shaja Deba, Saselo Shutter, Japsu Jewa, Demba, Jumden the Jinshewa, Dashoma Yanda, Zobe Sanje Riwa, Dashasun, the Harishewa, Jin, Jema Jiwood, Deva Kalo. Lana Meba Lada Melan Jedema Sanje Jumde. Penny or Shaja Dovana Sasa. Should the Jamsu Shevo Dema Jumden and the Shinship. Rajama Yanda Ponsobe Sanje Riba Shasun. The Varishavan Jidin Jimba Jubon de Kaloju. Lana Meba Lada Melan Jedema Sanje Jumden. Penny or Shaja Dovana Sasa no should the Jamsu Shevo. Kanzekanyan Zoho Jetamanse, Sajan Dena Compound. Manage then our churches. The Zekiava Jama Charles and Nanda Kumash and Susan. Ishijazo Sajan Lomboda, Taban Jedem Suman. Mombachoni Jama Charles and Sajan Demarchiment of his. Selva Dava Jama Charles and the region of Sebasumas. Yame changing Jama Charles and Gombut Precision. Tamje Tembe Demabo, Sonomi and Dangerous. The Shinshama Charles and Taban de Jet. Given as one that reaches to them children. Shinjuja Laza and China German. Lava Tama Rabin, Shinga Damba, Geduna Yachas and Divachi and Midges. Give up his own so by share, Rangus in the young. Then a Sanja Damba in Karmara Rim. Gamasa, Chuberda, Melon Lord of Gender. Decision of the Terata, son of Dia Tumjes. Cobantum the Ginger, the Garden of the Shiva Lottery. Severe and wonder show
to the teacher and the
blessed
blessed one, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct,
Sugata
and the Lord of the world,
Supreme
supreme guide of Jesus, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one,
and the
blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakti. I prostrate and make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, the Lord of the world, supreme guide of beings to be gained, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one being, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be gained, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you were born to serve, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like golden light, flame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme science face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are now. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one gone to dustness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the low rebels, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community of intending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. The star, mirage, a flame of lamp, illusion, a drop of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits, may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the flow of thoughts, and be delivered from worship of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje shama soje shama ma chaju pato dande jaso chen dage jaso jebe somo je rola penche sanje prabhu. Sanje shama soje shama ma chaju pato dande jaso chen dage jaso jebe somo rola penche sanje prabhu. Sanje shama soje shama ma chaju pato dande jaso dage jaso jebe somo je rola penche sanje prabhu. Sanje shama soje shama Chanjo Bado Dane Jazo Chen, Dage Jazo Jebe Sonam Jendrola Penche Sanje Ruwe Sho.
I go for refuge until enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Tamje Mala Cha Suma Deda Sanje Jumden Dena Dishe Mata Ajuma Yang Tabanzo San Riva Tanga Shazo Dena Deva Sheba Jiten Jamba Juba Deba Kalo Juba Lama Beba Tata Bena Jeta Sanje Jumden Dea Suwan Dishe Sheba Dena Sona Dabi Jeta Geve Zawa Nama Chumese Severa Dujemba Sonam Jedera Nam Jeshe Peje Samba Nam Jeta Senam Jemeto Jeba Chuyu Rambatu Tona Medumba Meba Tebe Meba Nama Mumbraga Shirab Sikir Tomnama Ziva Meba Simje Tamje Temba Chanju Simba Yab Pabe Kazana Jevo Yangana de Bertrajet and Ruana Jetebe Ishepado Meba Boba Sanje Major Sonambata Yanya Kujeta Chomich Kusumba Meba Devata the Maru Suda Ganyawama Sume Batata Mate Dungana Nava Juba Pombotana Nava Juba Kamana Medemba Jeja Devana Machine Yanzo Donatala Nava Juba Sivala Juba Chivola Give Yanzo Devata Majumba Tadrajumba Sanji Jimnedi Yishimandea Yangana Devala Medeva Yanda Vanjitana Simja Tamja Vasiva Sala Shuba de and Dedana Sanji Jimnedi Kusheven de Yanda Vanamusu Tavisha Tomagi Paduki Tomagi Sidrusamba Mandeva Yanzo Yanzo Tava Yanzo Chava Yanta Vatoma Nebeva Yucheva Mevanya Deton to you. Kevana Joso Rangari Vajuna de Javasu, Bechun, one level to Yavasu Soviet. Meduma Mission de Vada de Batema, Yuva, Tevachi, the Navashuba Rivashu. Tawashuva, Tumbashuva, Temaji, Juva, Charge of Juva, Sona Jivishi, Yanzo Jumachi, Jimena, Kunawa, Jimena, Juva Chimbo, Kangi, the engine, and Javaju, Kavaba, Jimba, Chavan, Tomeba, Womeba, Tumeba, Giovanni Shidamba Zobesanya Manaja Tabata no Charles. Okay. So right now we're still on this the consequentialist reasoning. The consequential reasoning for negating the self arising. So the Clearword, Chandrakirti Clearword says that the reverse proposition of consequentialist argument are relevant only to the opponents, not for us, as we have no thesis. And he says, when the proponents of no intrinsic existence presents the consequentialist argument to those who
propound intrinsic existence, how can it follow that the proponent himself has to accept the reverse proposition of these consequences? So therefore, the statement in the consequential arguments merely refute opponent's thesis. This is no affirmation of reverse proposition, such consequences. So this has become, the actual consequences reasonings by the Buddha Palitas. So then there are kind of, some says from this there's a divisions within the Madhyamikas, Prasangika school, and autonomous schools. So many of those Madhyamika school thinks that anything that you, you present or you set the logic has to be straight. So reason, predicate, and the subject, like the syllogistic, like table is the impermanent because it's produced from the cosmic conditions. So anything that produced from cosmic conditions must be impermanent. So right, like weathers, flowers, leaves. Therefore, table is being produced from cosmic condition. Therefore, it must be impermanent. It's a kind of very direct kind of the reasonings. And then now the Prasangika school says it's not necessarily any reason has to be kind of straight and then kind of acceptable for the both opponents and the proponents. So they and then Buddha Palitas, like saying for example, the sprout must not be arising by itself. In the consequences, if the sprout arises by itself, then it would be the re-arising of the sprout would be pointless, and there is limitless the arising of the sprout. Right. So this brings by so this kind of consequential reasonings brought by the Buddha Palitas. So Buddha Palita says the aim of this logic is to show the contradictions for the opponent, right? So so the consequentials, as a consequential, the re-arising will be pointless, and then it will arise endlessly. So this, through the consequences, right? The consequential is yes, re-arising with point. There's the point or with point. So and the anything that arises is always with limited. So the consequences that the drawn consequences, right? So drawn consequences. So Buddha Palita says this drawn consequences not necessarily, what kind of the accepted by proponents, because the consequence will be directly hitting on the opponents, because the opponent accepts, right? Anything that arises is always re-arises, because any effect, the effect always pre-exists within the cause, right? So so the effect must pre-exist within the cause. So once the effect manifests before your eye, and then the mundanely, what they call is arisen, right? So re-arising is accepted. And then anything that arises with limited, it also disintegrates, right? So, and Prasangika school, they don't accept re-arising of any effect, right? And anything that re-arises and arising with limited also not accepted. But Prasangika school can throw these consequences, particularly in the time the opponents, accepting re-arising and arising with limited and self-arising. So the Prasangika point is to show the contradictions, self-arising and your acceptance of re-arising and then arising with the limited is contradict. Right. So when the proponents of the intrinsic existence here, therefore the statement in the consequentialist argument merely refute opponent's thesis. So there is no affirmation of the reverse proposition of such consequences. Then you can, and also you can, within the Prasangika school, maybe they can say the sprout, right, must not be dependent arising because it self-arises. Well, the sprout must, sprout must not be, arising dependently because it's self-arising. So anything that's self-arising, right, has to be independent, right? So, so these consequences, when this we can use this logic, within the Madhyamika, because there is no drawn consequences which is not accepted by the opponents and the proponents. Right? So they both accept. Anyway. So this is a lot of problems. These statements are relevant only in the context of the refuting self-arising. This throwing consequences, this only used when it comes to refuting the self-arising, not with respect to all consequences argument presented by the Madhyamika. This statement apply to the true reductio absurdum, right? Absurdum argument, refuted the thesis of self-arisings. So reductive consequences being drawn out in those two arguments are not simply that arising will become the pointless and it will be endless. So the drawn consequences is, arising will be pointless and it will be endless. Means this, what is throwing the consequences is, as subject school, you accept, re-arising or arising again and arising with limited. So this, you are accepting it, but if you accept things arises by itself, and this would be not possible. So the consequences being drawn out are that re-arising will be pointless. There will be infinite regress of the arising. The reversal of these consequences, that there is a point in such re-arising, and the process of such re-arising is finite. Our position, the Samkhya opponents alone uphold. So the reverse consequences is, arising, re-arising or arising again, or arising with limited. So this opponents only uphold. So whoever has this kind of promise, and then we can show the contradict with self-arising. And because we, Madhyamika, do not have such thesis of self-arisings, we do not implicate, by the contradictions ensuing from adhering to such a tenet. So the Madhyamika school don't accept, re-arising or re-arising again, and Madhyamika also refuting the self-arising. So by refuting self-arising, accept dependent arising. Dependent arising means depending on its own cause, and depending on its own cause, and then every effect follow its own type of cause and conditions, right? Only its own kind of, like barley sprout only follow the barley seed, not the rice seed and tomato seed. And the way giving rise to the effect is also, by changing the cause itself, by descending the cause is the way to giving rise to the sprout. There is no, when the Sunday disintegrates, Monday happens. So Sunday, the day Sunday, the way it gives rise to Monday is simply, disintegrating itself. Right? Disintegrating the Sunday is the process of giving rise to this Monday. It's not like Sunday baked the Monday overnight and morning it becomes, Monday. So seed is also barley seed. So the way it gives rise to sprout is kind of by changing itself with corporate conditions, like soil and water and wind and the sun, and so so when it at the end it totally ceases to exist, that is the time sprout has manifested. Right? So the giving rise is, the seed is not giving rise to the sprout, having being different from it. Right? It's not like a pot in the potters. It's not like a carpenter in a table. Right? Self has to disintegrate. Self is disintegrating, and then total cease to exist. So that moment is the sprout manifest. So giving rise is not like a seed is, say, I open myself, I give you this sprout, right? So when the sprout, barley sprout, follow its own type of cause, which is the barley seed, and barley seed, the way it give rise to the sprout, not with being different, not with being others. So oneself being dying, and at the end, and then sprout happens. So in this life is also like that. All this life we do things, right? Mentally, verbally, physical actions, and continuously kind of functioning, and then at the end we die, and that moment we born, right? So it's not like I am going to give birth to my next life, so I want to see him when he is baby. So it's not like we cannot see, right? Or so you see, the way it gives rise is like that. So, and the Prasangika school says that every effect follows its own cause of the seed, and the seed, the way it gives rise by having disintegrating. So now, therefore, the arising of the sprout is dependent. The arising is dependent. Arising is conceptually constructed by depending on the procedure of the seed when it disintegrating. So that, if you conceptually, so the arising of the sprout is conceptually constructed. So if the arising of the sprout, hypothetically, if arising of the sprout is not mental construct, it is physically happening. So then the question is, when did it happen? Is it happening, arising from the seed happen during the sprout or during the seed? During the seed, there is no arising of the sprout because sprout is non-existent at the time. So arising of the sprout is also, not happening during the sprout. So to sprout, to arise, there will be a seed. So the seed is no longer existing during the sprout. Therefore, in the moment of the, I think in the resultant time, there is no effect arising from cause. Causal time, there is no effect arising from the cause. So that proves the possibility of arising of the sprout is, only exists conceptually. Right. So the Prasangic school says, because of the dependent rising, so dependent rising, so that proves the arising is not kind of self-made. It's not self-made. Self-made means self refer to the sprout itself. Sprout itself is not doing it, because if the sprout itself is doing kind of arising of itself, and it has to be done within the resultant time. Right. So the Prasangic school says yes, is dependent arising, therefore not self-arising. It's not self-arising. So, and then the same consequences, this is also applied, it can be applied in the Samkhya school. Samkhya school says, arising of the sprout means the arising is activity, is done by the sprout itself. So that's it. So this sprout, before it has been, manifest, it already exists. And then we say, where the sprout does exist, in what? So then it says, yes, within the seed. So there also says, every effect must exist within its own cause. And Shantideva says, in that case, the waste of the food must be exist, within the food. So when you serve the food on the plate, there is the waste of the food in there, right? Because it's born from it, right? So so that's dependent arisings, and the self arising is is contradict. So in Sunyan, so Buddhapalita too speak of there being no point in the arising again. So mention the word again. Again is just as a clear word uses the word again. The present text too reads, if you conceive that what is once arisen can arises again, so it is the existence and the re-arising that are incompatible. So the existing and re-arising is incompatible. So if something already exists, there is no re-arising of that. There is no arising again of things that already exist. So which means everything is impermanent. Anything that exists is impermanent. So impermanent means it cannot be, once more, once again exist. Impermanent means it disintegrating, it is continuously changing to the new form. So anything that born or it being produced, that cannot be born again. That very thing is not going to be born again. Maybe some might really find where there's a contradictions. If there is anything that has already been produced, that very thing cannot be born again. So does that mean we are refuting rebirth and continue and reincarnations? So, once yourself, this life, the human being, the very human being once died, right? At the time of death, this person, the very person is coming again? No. So that does not mean this person's, when they die, are dissipated or discontinued. Right? So I think this is very kind of becomes so very significant from this intersects in the non-Buddhist school. So because of this very life once is died, and then it is not going to be reappear again, and they find some people think, oh, that's the dissipation, oh, that is the discontinuations. So we cannot accept that, right? So because and then all these scriptures, the Bhagavan has taught us to gain liberations, to be able to live better life in the next life. For that, Bhagavan taught us to do, to good things, to accumulate the virtuous activities, and try to abandon negative activities. So if we die, we become discontinue. And what is the purpose of following the Bhagavan and kind of seeking for the moksha? So therefore they decided now myself must be permanent. Only my body died. Right? My body died, right? And I don't die. So, which means you are not going to believe in the death certificate. So this is like a snake, leave their skin. So snake is still there, moving somewhere. Right? So I think that's, for them, it's very difficult to, to digest that impermanence and continuum. So together, it's kind of, for them, it's very hard to digest that. So, Bodhisattva Buddha's teachings, impermanent means continuum. Impermanent does not mean discontinue or the dissipation. I think this also kind of, and not just non-Buddhist school and having a hard time to digest, even the follower of the Buddha, right? People who believe next life and next life and next life, with too many lives, they always think that this is like, the person is like, moving from this life to the next life. It's like, the passenger who changes the buses. So he just get off from one bus and wait for another bus and get in the other bus. That is it. So there is one single entity constantly remaining, existing. The only changing is the bus, right? So that is, so that is the kind of the idea, how they think. So Atma has to be permanent. So if you accept, if you understand, impermanence means changing. Impermanence means continuum. So then you don't have to say, a body die, I don't die. Right? Everyone who has born has to die. Right? Even the mountains, they die. Right? Whole planets die. So so this is just a human being. So when we die, it's not going to be dissipated or discontinued. Like milk die, become yogurt. So yogurt die, become, I think, I don't know what's the English. There's a kind of watery, kind of sour.
When yogurt just goes back.
Yogurt, when you turn, kind of the churn, and then produce the butter, right? And the rest become like watery. It has sour taste. Huh?
Curd?
Yeah, maybe curd and yogurt is what's different.
It's different.
Really? Oh, okay. So it's like that. So it's kind of none of those in the previous one as a dissipated. Right? It continues. This continues that. This continues that. So within that continuum, because every continuum follows its own previous cosmic conditions. So that's kind of the suggesting, or the kind of suggesting that your actions matters, right? Every action that has done in the past matters, because the influence continuously, continuously, the influence continuously happening with every effects, the continuum of that. So that's a non-dissipated karma. Non-dissipated karmas. So when you say, only it follows its own type of cosmic conditions, and some people think other actions, right? So my actions not going to give rise or not going to happening on other people's. But if I, for example, if I pay for someone to do things, so his actions, every actions, counts of my action. Right. Even, for example, if I, on the side, side road, so if I what's that? Throw any dirts or my for example, when I have the dirty from nose, runny nose, right? Snot. So if I throw this on the side road,
Mucus.
So and then I left. Maybe right after the other person says, "Wow, that's very dirty," and that makes him not happy. So from this, because of this person find this is not good or disrespect or it disappoint, so it still counts as my action. Right? So this is called imperceptible actions. Right? If I leave something like water or something that is, leave it for others. So if someone used that water, if someone got the benefit from it, and that also counts my virtuous actions. So these are all imperceptible actions. So yeah.
I was going to say, in the water example, if you leave the water with the intention, that good intention that someone is no longer thirsty, with the good intention, what if someone misuses it? Or somebody, understand my question? Like if someone misuses it, but you had a good intention for that original thing, how does that affect your karma?
I think it's kind of, it's hard to determine that action has to be positive because of your good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And also, not necessarily actions require any intention. So, so now that depending on the circumstance, the determining, the changing by that. Like, for example, so there's the story about one of the household old man, and he wanted to be a bhikshu. He wanted to get the ordination from the Buddha. And then that old man came to the monasteries, and Shariputra, he asked Shariputra, "Can you give me ordinations? I want to be a bhikshu." And Shariputra, and see him, like, is there any the seed of the liberation in that person through his clairvoyance? And he couldn't really see this person has any liberation seed. So, and then Shariputra said, "I don't see any possible you can, find a path to liberations. So I'm not going to give you any ordinations." So he just stayed there for, a whole day. And when the Buddha comes, and Buddha gave him the ordinations. So then Shariputra says, "I tried to see through my clairvoyance. I couldn't find he has any kind of, positive seed that can lead him to liberations." So there was a time that he was a dog, and he did the circumambulations. So where there's relics of the Buddha. So there's no intentions. There is no good intention. There's no bad intentions. He was just kind of rumbling around there. So this is not really depending on intentions. His actions become the seed for the liberations through the power of their relics. So the Buddha's dedications, and his actions contact, that action become the positive. So example, you can with good intentions, with you just leave. For example, if I leave with good intentions, knife outside, if someone used the knife to kill, so it's not really cannot determine by, because I have good intentions. Someone pick it and they use cut the vegetables, and they have a good dinner or the lunch. So if so how this use the kind of and around the circumstances, it's changing because the cause to give rise to effect is depending on the circumstance and its corporate conditions. So I'm not sure if you just kind of dropped anything like a knife, if you drop from your bags, right? You have no intention, no nothing, right? It's just accidentally dropped and that use. Maybe that doesn't count your actions. So you live there. You did that, right? And you say, I hope this may be used by the in the good. So that all kind of it's just possibilities. It can be turned into good actions. It can be turned into bad actions, right? So like imperceptible actions. These are imperceptible actions. So I think it's also when everybody file the tax. So the tax money used by the government, right? And then used in the positive way, everybody shares the positive. In negative way, everybody shares the negative. So this was long time, I think 1980s. One time, some people asked these questions to His Holiness. So what karma that all Tibetan people had faced these problems? So His Holiness thought, that's a group karma. so the kind of leaders did something, and then all the people they agree on what he was doing, right? And all passively accepted. So that karma shares. In the 1960s, 1959, 60, or 63, 4, 5. I think inside Tibet, outside Tibet, equally they face the same problem. So although the Tibetan in outside in the free country, but the problem almost same. Hunger, thirst, and the shelters is the same. So then gradually, 70s, and then just become better and better and better. Inside, outside also become better. So you see, so our social security is also the common karma. So now this saying that dependent arising is, what I'm saying, it is the contradict with self-arising. Arising means dependent arising. Dependent arising is the opposite of independent. Independent means self-made, self-arising. Right? So I think this so impermanence and if things follow its own potential, so impermanence, things follow in intent, its own type or type of cause. And it's the same thing, following the potential, following its own type of cause, right? And then the cause never being different from the effect, right? So the first impermanence, like everything is instant changing, and that every changing is following its own type of cause. So the cause never different from the effect, different from the effect. And then the way when the cause giving rise to the effect, cause never transfer to the state of effect, right? Cause is not going towards that, right? So that at the end is saying, so therefore it is not the Bhagavan has created, because everything's following its own potential, right? And the cause is no different from the effect. So you cannot be, say, you can say, I am no different from the Bhagavan. I am Bhagavan. No. So therefore the Bhagavan is not the, actual cause for the existing of the, the individual, like plants and human beings and animals and all. So Bhagavan is, we set free the Bhagavan is responsible for suffering of us. So we said, no, you are not. I know you are not the cause for my single existence. So that's we sometimes use your mebigenichon. Yeah, in the Sanskrit, in Hindi, Sanskrit and Tibetan, so we always use the your meba. Your is kind of, it's I don't know. So it's a kind of, it's literally the your is movement. So what it's referring to is, you know, so out of your kind of, desires, yeah, kind of, which means it's not happen at will. So at will means Bhagavan desires something. Oh, I want to create hell. So therefore I want to make these bad people. So if something because of his desire is happening, so then, it's, out of will. If he can do that, and we can ask him, please stop the bad peoples. Please empty those hell beings. Or make from now on, everyone who's born has to be born as a good person. So because he can do that, right, is all happening at will of the Bhagavan. So so the Asanga's three characteristics of the conditional phenomena, and added two by the Chandrakirti, say five characteristics. So five characteristics, add two additional, the Chandrakirti is cause do not transfer to the state of the effect. And the cause is no different from its effect. So if you conceive that what is once arisen can arise again, so it is existence and the re-arising that are incompatible. So existence means once is born, once is being produced, and the re-arising means, so after the death itself, again, that very thing is going to be appear. So when 9 o'clock ends, then when the 9 o'clock ends, that very 9 o'clock has to come back, right? Say from now on, I'm going to call myself at 10, right? So the 10 o'clock dies is 11. Although I'm 10, but I'm going to call myself 11, right? So that's this kind of, so the existence and the re-arising that are incompatible. Not existence, not existence and arising is similar. So existing and arising, things can arise, due to its own cosmic conditions. So that is the kind of essential, the point of existence. Exist once happened to be exist, once they happen to be born due to cosmic conditions, and then right after they start disintegrating, and that disintegrates and ceases to exist, and something else has born. So similarly, it is existence and finitude of re-arising that are incompatible. Existence and the finitude of the re-arising, the endless arising, incompatible. Not existence and the finitude of arising. The latter two are not mutually exclusive. So the limited arising and existing is not mutually exclusive. The meaning of the second citations, when the proponents of the no intrinsic existence presents consequences argument to those who propound intrinsic existence, how can it follow that proponents of himself has to accept the reverse proposition of these consequences? So the second citations, when the Madhyamika proponents of no intrinsic existence presents the two reductive arguments against the Samkhya. So when it comes to the opponents and the proponents, right? So proponents and opponents are opposite, because opponents believes that, accept the the self-arising, and everything that arisen is re-arise. So the proponents no intrinsic existence. The proponents in the Prasangika school, Prasangika school not accepting self-arising and the re-arising. So reductive arguments against, when Prasangika used the consequentialist logic, right? Consequential logic against the Samkhya, as outlined above, he himself has no wish to subscribe to the reverse proposition of these consequences. So the Prasangika school, their opponents and the proponents are totally two kind of, the opposite. So anything that proponents that throw the consequences, and the consequences, the reverse consequences, are not going to bounce back to the proponents' school. So so no wish to subscribe the reverse proposition of those consequences. It is also not the case that despite having no intention to subscribe to them, he is somehow compelled to do so against his will. No? So although he claimed that anything that arises has re-arises, and anything that arises is limited, now he has to go against his will because he accepted self-arising. He's compelled to do so against his will. So therefore, the citation started that we Madhyamikas do not subscribe to the reverse proposition of those two reductive arguments. So the meaning of the third citation is, therefore, the statement in consequentialist arguments merely refute opponent's thesis. There is no affirmations, the reverse proposition, such consequences. Third citations as follow. Although the reverse proposition of the two reductive arguments that there is a point to arising again and that such arising is finite, do not operate as a logical proof to establish the absence of self-arising. Right? So we have no problem with, yeah. So establish self-arising. This does not means they serve no purpose whatsoever. So through demonstrating the arising would be pointless, and that there will be an finite regression to arising, something the Samkhya does not accept. These reductive arguments serve merely to negate self-arising, which the Samkhya does adhere to. In contrast, in the case of two reductive arguments, in the context of the refuting arising from others, we Madhyamika do accept the reverse of the two consequentialist arguments. We should therefore understand that there are two kinds of reverse proposition of the consequentialist argument. So that the sprout, the first consequentialist is sprout is not self-arising. So if the sprout is self-arising, and then it would be their arising would be pointless, and then the endless, the arising. And the second consequentialist is saying the self, the sprout is not born from other, right? If the sprout is born from others, and everything will be born from everything. So, this consequentialist, sort of the Prasangika school says, if born from others, everything is born from everything, is we accept. Right. So we should therefore understand that two kinds of the proposition of the consequential arguments. Once we accept and once we do not. Now, rejecting the response aimed at avoiding these faults. So the opponent's response is now the number one. The response aimed at avoiding these faults, and he kind of now this is more like within the Buddhist schools, the essential school of thought, who believe cause and effect are different, right, intrinsically. So their response to that, and rejecting the response. Now within the Buddhist schools, the essential schools respond aimed at avoiding these faults. And Chandrakirti's root text reads that which is capable of being produced is called, so therefore effect. So almost like this is, which is something that is suitable being produced, suitable being produced is called effect. Right? Something can be suitable to be born. Right? Like barley sprout is suitable to be born when there is a barley seed and incorporate with water, soil, sun, and wind, all the elements. So from the assembly of the barley seed and their corporate cosmic conditions is suitable to give rise to the sprout, and a barley sprout is suitable to being produced. Right? So that's anything that is being suitable to be produced because of their assembly of the cosmic conditions. That's why it's called effect. And that which is capable of producing it, the assembly of the cosmic condition, which is capable or potential to be producing it, though others, although this seed and the sprout are, the others, they are different, right? Is the cause sharing the same continuum, although they are different from each others, because one is potential to give rise, one is suitable to be produced. So that makes them cause and effect. So essentially what they're saying is cause and effect determine, the cause determined by the potential to give rise, effect determined by suitable being produced. And although the seed and sprout are different from each others, but they can be continuum. So this the sharing the same continuum, the effect arises, it produces. Hence, rice sprout cannot come from something like barley seed. Now there's, looks like there are very kind of, clear distinctions. And if the essential school saying, the cause is, by definitions, the cause means potential, right? Potentials. Effect means suitable being produced. So when this applied to the barley seed and sprout, barley seed is potential to give rise to the sprout, therefore is a barley seed. And the barley sprout is suitable being produced by the barley seed, so therefore it's effect. So even they are different from each others, they can be different and continue. But barley sprout is not going to be produced by, barley sprout not going to be produced by the rice seed. So in this kind of line, what Prasangika school in this line, they kind of, the way they say the potential determined by, cause is determined by the potential, effect determined by suitable being produced. And this is some kind of reasonable. And then say they can be same continuum, also reasonable. Now, in what base you say, although they are different, right? That is your assumptions. There is no logic behind that. So, two lines you say with rational, and one is just, out of blind faith. So this is almost like you said, there's a 2 cat and the other the 2 cow. Now there's a 5. It's like, so 2 cat is 2, 2 cow is 2. Now I have 5. So what, something you just added up, right? So, although they are different, in what base you say they're all different, right? So here the opponents state the following: the cause and effect are other from one another by virtue of their intrinsic characters. But this does not mean that anything can arise from anything. For one can see the cause and effect in their own ways, have a determinate the correlations with one another's. So nyeba is the relations, the correlations. This is so because that very thing that is capable of being produced by another thing is called or deemed. So deemed means deemed.
Like I deem you worthy. You are.
Oh, okay. So they're kind of there's maybe you can say there's unshakable relations.
Mm-hmm.
So relations
deemed consider in a specified way.
Yeah, so it's these two are, how say, solidly related, right? Related. So the reason this is capable of being produced, and then the the effect that is suitable to be produced by these assemblies. So there's a kind of there is unshakable relations between these two. Therefore, the effect of that other things, the presence of the word. Therefore, it is the variant in commentaries and specific cause that is capable of producing it. Specific cause for the barley sprout, the specific cause of barley seed is capable of producing it. The effect, though it is the intrinsically others, so they always leave the blind spot, right? So they kind of use the reasoning to prove whatever they can. Anything they cannot prove, is just they skip. Right? So intrinsically others is the cause, hence to determine to be cause. Therefore, so they assert it is only by means of this special type of otherness. There's a special type of otherness. So they also have kind of in their mind, so I can see the apple and orange are others, horse and cows. Now this other, but special type of others, right? So the cause and the effect are posited not on the basis of mere otherness in general. So their cause and effect, they are different, right? Not because they are different, therefore they are cause and effect. So their cause and effect, therefore it is different. Different is not the reason to be cause and effect. So they also have in their mind, apple and orange cannot be cause and effect. Horse and cow is not. So they want to say this barley seed and sprout are different, and their cause and the effect, and there's the same continuum. So this is for the Prasangic school says, it's not really kind of logically approvable. So you say there's the same continuum, and the cause and effect, and how can that be different? So there is no kind of because of the same continuum, because there is one is have the potential to give rise to it, and others being suitable to be giving rise by this assembly cosmic conditions. So that, that kind of, indicates they are not different by themselves.
So they're talking about there's a general difference, and then they're saying like barley seed and barley sprout can be a
Special
specified type of
difference.
difference.
While also maintaining that they are a continuum.
So you can say, I was different from, morning when I wake up, I'm different from last night who sleep in my bed. so you say, when I'm hungry, then I eat, and then once I have ate, so I become different from when I was hungry. So the criminals was different from the person who is committing the crime. So the prisoners who release, that's different from one who's put in jail. So it kind of, it's logically, it's not making sense there.
You just kind of
Yeah.
say fill in the gap, but don't explain.
Yeah, it's kind of, saying that everything they explain, that's really proving that they are no different each other. But still they say this is a special type of difference. So yeah, and I think in the mundane, sometimes people says, oh, that things, that food, that clothes, that the environment change make me new. So I'm different from what I was before. So that everything kind of, that in that case, everything that newly born has to be different from their past. So furthermore, the rice sprout come from the rice seeds, sharing the same continuum. They cannot come from something like barley seeds, which do not share the same continuum. So in the way that barley sprout grow from barley seeds, even in case where they share the same continuum only from those that are its producer can be as a producer can the effect arises. What is it? Yes. In the way that barley sprout grow from the barley seeds, even in case, right? In the case where they share the same continuum, so barley seed and sprout, the same continuum, only from those that are its producer. So producer is the cause, can be the effect arises. So maybe English speakers may
It should be the same type.
same type. Yeah.
But is this saying when it says only from those that are its producer can effect arise? Are they saying that sounds intrinsically? Is that what are they? Is that the meaning there?
Gece mi bu? can be the effect arises. Can the effect. For example, subsequent instants do not produce preceding instants. Yeah. So the subsequent instance, the second moment of that is, although it's same continuum, but the previous one can produce the later one. Later one cannot produce back to the past. And then it's wow, you said very that's very profound. Although there are differences of that. For example, subsequent productions. There is only the preceding instance within the same continuum that produce subsequent instance. Hence, the opponent might assert not just anything can arise from anything. So, they're trying to avoid that. So I'm not going to say everything is going to be born from everything. But, the barley seed and sprout, by virtue, they are different. Right? Intrinsically, they are different. This different, and difference, kind of differential of the barley seed and sprout and the apple and orange are not the same. So here there's the same continuum. And although they are same continuum, the previous one can produce the next one. Next one cannot produce back to the past.
They're saying that there's some kind of special relationship between.
Yeah, they're saying that. So I think the point they're saying is because the barley seed has the potential to give rise to the barley sprout, not the rice sprout. So from there you can see this is directly, there's a kind of relations that is indestructible. This sprout has to born from the barley seed, not from the rice seed, tomato seed. So this is only suitable being produced by this type of assemblage of cosmic conditions. And then, therefore, you can say they are same continuum. Same continuum means the same continuums for them is the same continuums saying, their cause and effect, intrinsically they are others, right? So, but still, because of the continuum, because of the potential being suitable, and that proves it perfectly makes is the kind of relations of the cause and effect. So therefore, I'm not going to say everything is born from everything, right? So if you want to say if they are different, therefore everything is born from everything. So I'm not saying just because of the difference is barley seed produce the barley sprout. I'm saying, barley seed is producing the barley sprout because it has the potential. Barley sprout is being produced only by the barley seed because this is the only part suitable to be produced by this type of cause conditions. So they are different, although they are different, but still there is cause and effect. So now I avoided from everything born from everything. You cannot just throw the consequences, right? Because they are different. Now everything has to be born from everything. So now this is the opponents, the essential schools presenting their kind of, it's kind of their defense. So rejecting that response to those who speak of the cause and effect as existing by virtue of their own essence, we ask the following: what accounts for the determinate correlations between rice seed and the rice sprout? So what account for the determinate correlation between rice and the rice seed and the rice sprout. If the opponent answer, we can see such determined correlations. So we might then ask why it is that you see such fixed correlations. So now almost kind of the relations, the seed and sprout relations. So I think that the medieval autonomous school and the minority school, Siddhantika school, Vaibhashika schools, I think their way of drawing the inference of the barley seed and the sprout relations and form the definition of the cause and the definitions of the effect. So there is general kind of, the cognitions, right? And yes, cause is defined by the potential to give rise. Effects is defined by suitable being produced from particular cause. So that is general. It's general. Now that we are saying you're accepting the body seed and sprout are kind of by nature they are different. So how this happened? What makes you see that? So have you witnessed the relations, the seed giving rise to the sprout and the sprout being produced by the cause? So that is the reason that gives you the idea of they are different.
Two.
So yeah, that's true. Yeah, effect means right effect that produced by the cause, which means there's a two. One is giving rise, one is being produced. So these relations, if you're not conceptually drawing these relations, so you think that's kind of if not conceptually, kind of creating the relations, it has to be physical. So if that is a physical, then you might have witnessed, right? When the sprout is born, you have witnessed seed has given rise to it, right? You are just saying by conceptually, or you are just specifically you have witnessed, experienced their relations. If you are not able to say the relations of the cause and the effect, right? Oh, I haven't really objectively and witnessed the relation, but I conceptually have drawn the idea. So then the question the Prasangika school says, your relations, your difference is conceptually. Is a conceptually distincted cause and two effect are separate. So anything that conceptually distincted separate is not different. So conceptually you can draw the kind of you can draw the distinct two separate thing. Even you can say leaf and the color of the leaves. So does that mean you have seen the color of the leaf and the leaf are the different? Right. So that is conceptual. If it's beyond the conceptual, is the objective, then you might have witnessed when the sprout is born, right? Or you have, what do you call it, when they give birth by C-section.
Mm-hmm.
So have you witnessed the doctor comes, open the seed and, oh, sprout is the comes. This is, right? From the mango seed, the mango trees pulls out from the mango. Right. So then you can say, yeah, they are different. Right. Otherwise, if just simply by conceptually kind of drawing the imaginations, constructing the kind of the relations and conceptually. So that means it's not objective. So conceptually distinctives are not, objectively different. Like hat and the size of the hat, space and the empty of the space, all conceptually distincted as two separate phenomena. So this is, it's a kind of very big argument. We can see such determined correlations. We might then ask why it is that you see such fixed correlations. When the probed in this way, probed means inquiry. Yeah. In this way, the opponent is reduced to simply statings. So there is no kind of, an exact answer. Because such determinate correlations can be observed. So we see such determined correlations. In doing so, the opponent, in fact, the present no reason for the existence of such determined unique causal connections. So there is no objective being witnessed, objectively witnessed. So therefore, he cannot avoid all the objections outlined above. So Prasankhya says, if cause and effect are different, and everything has born from everything, so you cannot avoid that consequences. So you have two options. One is conceptually distincted, two separate phenomena, or you say it's not conceptual, it's objective, right? So when it's objective, so then first the cause, body seed and sprout, one moment, there's a simultaneously, right? Remains in the same time. Cannot avoid objections outlined above, not in the slightest. Thus, Chandrakirti argues the meaning of the above paragraph is this: the opponent has failed to demonstrate any reason why there is no contradiction in asserting the determined correlations between cause and effect, even though the two are distincted by virtue of the intrinsic characteristics. So his rebuttal does not remove the forms. So he says, this is not like apple and orange, right? So the barley seed has potential to give rise to this barley sprout. Barley sprout is suitable to give rise by this particular barley seed and their corporate conditions, and their same continuums. This is not rebuttal. This is not going to, defense the barley seed and sprout being different. So it's kind of a very sharp argument. So furthermore, to underline the fact that this is otherness through the intrinsic characteristic would equally apply to the everything, whether or not they are related to each other as a cause and effect, and that opponents herald, right? Claim, herald, herald.
Kind of like very grand explanation.
A king would have a herald who announced.
Yeah. So acclaimed would in fact, undermine his own standpoint. The text says the following. So you do not think of burly lotus pistils, kimsuka, flowers, and so on, as a producing rice sprout. Indeed, they have no power to do so. They do not belong to the same continuum. They share no likeness. Likewise, the rice seed and also being others differ from their sprout as well. So other means, like apple and orange. So the apple and orange is other because the apple has no potential to give rise the apple has no potential to give rise the orange, and orange is not same continuum of the apple, right? So so just as, for example, you do not think of the barley's pistils, I think in Sanskrit, kesara of the lotus, kimsuka, I think kimpa, kingshuka flowers. And so on, the account of just being others. Number one, producing rice sprout. And you admit that indeed they have no power to do so. Number two is no power to do so. That they do not belong to the same continuum. So, and they share no preceding instant of likeness. The apple and orange, as they don't share this same preceding in the instant, is not, which means, it's because they are not same, not in the same continuum. So it's not the instance, the time, they are not related, right? And then they do not have potential to produce each other's. So they are not following the same continuums. So that proves they are different. So anything that differs, it should not have any potential to give rise to others. So therefore, a barley seed is, by virtue, is different from the barley sprout. Barley seed should not have any potential to give rise to it. They cannot belong to one same continuum. So that's the four characters. Likewise, the rice seed also being others would not possess those four characteristics with respect to the rice sprout, for they too differ from their sprout by virtue of their own intrinsic characteristic as well. This type of arguments demonstrate how the notion of the presence of the absence of these four characteristics cannot be, postulated, even in the relation to things that are separate and unrelated. So the Prasangika school is very, forcefully, pushing that. So the barley seed, but is cannot be by virtue is different from the barley sprout. Now, So if you continuous us, if you insist us, now if you cannot prove they are different, right, objectively, objectively, and what base you can think. So the barley seed is different from the barley sprout. So previously it says, the like apple and orange, and then barley seed and sprout, the apple and orange, cow and horse, we can witness they're being different. So right now we can, with this eye, you can see the two cow and a horse together. They can go differently, right? They can, one can exist without another, right? So in this way, you cannot think of the seed, barley seed and sprout, as a different. Now, only one reason that you left that you may say they are different, because they are not same. So if they are same, identical, then how can the mango tree is the same with mango seed? How can be tomato be same with a tomato seed? Now this kind of notion of the same is become saying, and essentially saying it's not identical, it's not one. So not one that cannot make, because it's not one, so therefore you say you're different. So then the question is, there's many, are you identical or one with the human being? Are you identical one with human being? Human being and yourself is one. So so your money and put in the bank account, So can you say bank's money and my money is identical, right? So Bank of America is your same rich as you because you have the money in the bank. You cannot say they are one identical. Right? This is not same is not going to prove a different. So note, and also, you are not different from the government, but you are not identical with the government. Right? If you're identical with the government, then government worry when you leave the country. No, I don't exist. So not the same is not going to prove they are different. And also, a forest is no different from the trees because, not different from the trees, but they are not same. A forest is a singular entity and it cannot be same with each trees. So in this way, when you kind of trace, trace of what you call, when you tease out what is the actual kind of exact, the kind of the exact existing of the arising is not by itself, not born from others, not without a cause. And what is that arising? How can this stand? So if you continue the teasing out, and then you will find there is no arising. There's nothing from the objectively arising. So that is kind of, we call ultimate, the ultimate, the kind of, ultimate, the ultimate nature. Nothing objectively exists. Everything is just an entangle. From the entanglement, you can say, oh, there's good, this is bad, or this is tall, this is short, or this is best. So when things entangle, then we can, make the distinctions. We can find, separations. So the existing is big entanglement. Right? Good or bad is because of this entanglement. So in here, the entanglement is not the object by themselves entangled. Is the construct, is projected by the concept and identified and separate entity. So that is the the entanglement or the net of that separation is from the conceptually and separating it conceptually, identifying in a single unit in each things, right? So that's why there is many things to say. This is good or this is bad, right? So the tall, the short, and bad and good, and so beauty and not beauties. So all from that projections. So the things nothing but optical illusions. So that's why we say. So what makes you, if you really kind of, deep down and trying to find the very existing of the human being. So what you can find, right? What you can, if you, if you examine yourself within the aggregates. So what you can see, the aggregates here, the physical existence is like air, and then the water elements, and the heat, and then the earth elements, solidities, the space. So with these 5 elements, including the consciousness, element of consciousness, that, from this kind of entanglement of their 6 constituents of the element together, and it creates the identity of yourself. And from there, and your life begins, right? So you start seeing life. So when these elements changes, your life seems to be changing. So essentially, what you're seeing is nothing but, city of the sand eaters. So there is no solid human being. There's no solid I. It's all many things together, and many things together. And from the upper part of your head, with this eyeball, you see color and the shape, and a little bit, down and air, you can hear the sound, and then, in the nose, you can smell, the tongue, you can taste, from the physical body, you can feel things. So with that, because of these different faculties, they remain existing in the separate locations. And so that is the basis for you to think, oh, color, sound, smells are different. Because the subject is different. Right? So everything you're saying, the different, is subjectively. So, and with that, you can, you can obviously you can prove it like a braid. You can talk about the color of the braid, size of the bread, and and then taste of the bread, and then the tactilities of the bread. So you can say, now the second question, are these really different? Like, do they really remain like apple and orange, horse and cow? Because you have already accepted, because of the, eye sense bar is here, and no air sense bar is a little bit lower, and nose lower, and the subjects are located separately. That is the only reason you can say color, sound, smell are different. But when it comes to, pointing at one single thing, the bread, so the color, tactility, taste, shape, so all of them. So you can say, verbally you can separate them. So objectively, there is no color of the bread that remain exist in the higher state, and the taste lower. So if from the bread is not really kind of, from the bread side, from the bread, there's no color. The smell, taste, tactilities are not located separately. So what makes you think, right? So the color, sound, smell, taste, tactilities are different by their own essence. So like, essentials of school, barley seed and sprouts are different because they are not same, right? And then another thing that says, so I observe the seed and sprout is different. So that's kind of they tend to say. So they are not same is not good reason to say they're different. And I observe means, are you conceptually observing, or are you kind of objectively have witness? So they're being different. So the conceptually is not really observing it. Conceptually is, you're conceiving, you're imagining. So all this kind of, the kind of the analytical thinkings, leads you constantly, kind of to the absence of intrinsic existence. So anything that's a seemingly existing, concrete and solid by nature of itself is all out of misconception. Sometimes it seems like in Tibetan, for the Buddhist practice, we say Nangpa, inner practitioner or outer practitioners. So sometimes, I don't know this language how it's really originate. And there in Sanskrit there is no such word, right? Inner practitioners, outer practitioners. But in Tibetan we have. So I think in the Pön traditions, the first religion in Tibet, the kind of native religion. So Pön always says Nampas. So we are inner religions. You are outer religions. Maybe they can say, oh, Buddhism comes from outside. And sometimes the Nagpa here, it seems like, you are examining an inner subject. It's not really kind of analyzing, how can I produce, how can make table, how can make house. Rather, it's analyzing on the subjective. Right? So I think that's maybe one point is made true. Yeah, any questions? Yeah, I think when you kind of, when you're looking at one single thing, like for example, with the yellow sunglasses, looking at the snow, right? And then you take off the yellow sunglasses, right? Black sunglasses, another. So with that kind of, subjective matter, you cannot say there is a yellowish snow and black snow. But you cannot deny there is the existing of yellow like snow, black like snow, because it subjectively exists. With this, something you cannot deny things something really too obvious to you. So you can relatively say, with yellow sunglasses, yellowish snow is possible. With that, relating to that, right? So with with anger, you can see, you can find your favorite, thing can be unfavorable. So with attachment, you can find, things that is not clean, but it can be seen to be seemingly clean and pure. So this all kind of relatively is possible because nothing really objectively exists. Maybe we can examine the dogs and the animal how they see the snow. So we cannot too long see the snow directly. So we have to wear sunglasses or something, right? So dog and animals, they have no problem. So we have to see what is in their eye. Okay. Chanju simjo rinpoche, ma jeba na jeju ji, jeba nyeba meba nyo, kone kondo pebro. Tonye dawa rinpoche, ma jeba na jeju ji, jeba nyeba meba, kone kondo pebro ju, pama simjen tamje deda deju, nyedro tamje dada tongwa da chanju simba, kanda sushu, deda kunje, molom jubji roji, kare raga kowe shihos, pendan dewa manu jungwe ne, jere sama, tinsi jazi, shabe side badu tenju roji.
May the precious Bodhi mind at that point arising grow. May that point have no decline but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness at that point arise and grow. May that point have no decline but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother sentient beings have all that happiness, and may all the lower limbs be empty forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. O powerful Chandrakirti and Gatsu, remaining this world until samsara ends.
Oh, thank you.